So I'll start again. Probably now the sound is much better. Hi everyone, and welcome to another live session from the series Engineering Qualification Validation in Australia. And in this live session, I will be talking about how's the Australia market for engineers in this time of COVID-19. So stay with me until the end. But first, for those that don't know me, my name is Gerson Ida. I'm the founder of www.engineersinaustralia.com, a website to share content of value and useful information to help you in your journey to validate your engineering qualification in Australia. And I also share information about other subjects related to engineering, like workplace health and safety, environmental management, day-to-day of engineering in Australia, and also about professional engineering recruitment. I also have a special series that I do sometimes, which is how to get your first professional job in Australia. And if you haven't joined my Telegram group yet, Telegram is like it's a messaging app like WhatsApp, but I think it's much more professional, and I use it more than WhatsApp. I have a Telegram group called Engineering Qualification Validation. Nowadays, I've got probably more than 840 people in there. It's a free group. You can join in there. And every or most of those live sessions, I tend to create a PDF of the live session with information, and then I post in my Telegram group. So if you are interested to get the PDF, I welcome you to join my Telegram group. I just pasted the link in Facebook and YouTube. Those ones that are watching on Instagram, you can go to the link in my bio. Once you click on the link, it will open up a box with a few buttons, and one of the buttons is actually for you to join my Telegram group. You probably just need to download the app first, and once you download the app, then you can click on the link, and then you will be joining my Telegram group. Okay, and if you have any question about the validation process or how to get a job here in Australia, please write down in the comments, and during the live session, we'll be checking the comments, and I will be answering those. And if you know somebody that could be interested in this live session, please invite one or two other engineers to participate in these live sessions. Tonight, it's probably going to take between 30 minutes and 45 minutes. So you still have time if you want to share this live session in your groups, in your WhatsApp, or send a direct message in Instagram. You're more than welcome to, and I thank you very much. So remembering that I am broadcasting this live simultaneously on Facebook, in my Facebook page, Engineers in Australia, and also in Instagram, my profile at Gerson Ida, and also in my YouTube channel. You can search me on, just type Gerson Ida, and you'll find me. So let's get started with the content tonight. So what has changed in the market? And I would like to know, where are you now? Are you in Australia? Are you in Brazil? Are you in Colombia? Or are you in your home country? So I know when I'm addressing to you guys, I know that if you guys are here, if you got here in Australia, or if you guys is still in your home country, so I can give more tailored examples as well. So please put in the comments, where are you now? And so what has changed in the market? So obviously the fundamental change in the market is that unemployment rate has certainly increased quite substantially. And you know that last year Australia was in a recession after almost 30 years since the last recession in the 90s. So COVID really hit really, really hard. Yeah, thanks, Ellen. You are in Australia. Yeah, good to be here. And obviously, when a country enters in a recession, everybody obviously it's worried about jobs and how to get a job and how to pay the bills and how to pay mortgage and the school. And I've got my audience, majority of the audience is probably international students, either here in Australia trying to validate their qualification and get a job as an engineer, or you're still in your home country thinking about to migrate to Australia. And the market is certainly very competitive. And when recession kicks in, companies, they become a little bit more conservative. So you got to be more smart or smarter when you're trying to find a job to put yourself in the market. The only thing is that I noticed since last year is that the pandemic didn't really shut down manufacturing and construction activities in general. There were some slowdown, but those manufacturing activities and construction activities, I didn't really notice that companies ended up shutting down. What I noticed was that actually it got a little bit hotter even, because governments, they were trying to inject some money to stimulate the economy. So unfortunately, other industries like hospitality and tourism and arts, those performances, etc., was certainly very impacted. And I certainly feel sorry for those people working in those industry. But in terms of engineers, I saw that was really, really even hard to find other engineers as well. We ended up recruiting many engineers since last year, and although we ended up receiving lots of resumes, some of the quality of the engineers were not really quite to the market as well. So, and we're going to talk about today this issue about skills qualification and level of skills as well. Construction industry, in terms of residential and building construction industry, has slowed down more than infrastructure. And why is that? Because last year, with people losing jobs, they were a little bit more conservative and they were not really spending money in buying houses, etc. So those people that last year they had some money in the bank and they managed to buy some properties, they probably bought some good properties with lower prices, because obviously if the offer or supply of houses in the market were higher and then the demand was lower, obviously the prices were driven down. What we see now is that house market is going up, or has gone up already and is still going up. So a lot of the companies, building companies, residential, especially residential companies, they are building strong, and the prices now are going up. So, which means that manufacturing companies and suppliers, they are now producing more, and they're probably employing more engineers as well. One difficulty that happened since last year, and is still a little bit today, is that banks are a little bit more concerned about lending money to obviously buyers, because banks, they need assurance that they're still going to keep their jobs, and so they will be able to repay their mortgages. So although interest rates are very low, I think is the lowest interest rates that we've seen in history, but banks are still very cautious about lending money. And population in general, obviously a little bit more conservative, not spending too much, because the jobs today, you can have a job. Tomorrow, if we have another lockdown, or if we have another wave, COVID infection wave, People may tend to be a little bit scared because they can get without a shift or without a job. Companies, they could not really expand, etc. So population in general, they're still a bit more conservative. But there are some positive points that that the market is presenting. So the other point that I'm just going to show how the PDF is going to be, because so you can have a little bit of a look. So this is pretty much the PDF that I'm going to be doing. And how you're going to get this PDF? Well, you just a second. Just trying to, because I did some configuration changes, and I'm just trying to fix it. Just the lettering was a bit overlapped. Now it's good. So for you to get this PDF, in the middle of the live session, I'm going to take a picture of this PDF and I'm going to post in my Instagram. And there's a question there in this PDF. Engineers versus Australian market. What is the biggest impact for you in the engineers market? So that's a question that I would like you to, once I post this, I'm going to take a picture of this and post in my Instagram. I would like you to like the post and then put in the comments your response to that question. And if I get some interaction, then I'm going to create a PDF of this document here, and I'm going to post in my Telegram. So, and the PDF is going to be protected by a password, so you can stay with me during this live session here. So what has changed in the market? That's information that I'm just talking about. The other dot point is, are there more or less jobs for engineers? So what do you think? Are there more or less jobs for engineers? What do you think? What do you see? Or maybe you haven't seen because perhaps you're still as an international student, and then you working in other things and studying, and you're not really following the market. So, and that's why I decided to do this information tonight, because then I can keep you in the picture in terms of how's the job for engineers. So are there more or less jobs for engineers? You got to remember that the engineering industry is very broad, and within those industries there are many types of engineering industries. There is the building industry, which is pretty much residential, commercial, industrial. There is mining industry. There is manufacturing industry. There is road construction industry. There is consulting industry. There is supplier or manufacturing, already talked about, automobilistic industry, but unfortunately here in Australia, the car companies, they're all gone. But there are still a lot of manufacturing companies for other types of supplies as well. I'm going to talk about infrastructure industry. If you think about infrastructure industry as being road construction, transport infrastructures, ports and rails and roads and bridges, public transport, even when you talk about trains and buses, that industry hasn't really shrunk too much. Well, hasn't shrunk at all. I think it's even increased. The federal government and the state government, the federal government, they introduced what they call the federal stimulus program, where the federal government is injecting millions and millions and millions of dollars, and state governments, they are pretty much matching as well. Let's say that a federal government investing $10 million in a project, in a state project, the state also investing $10 million. So it means that the project is, let's say, $20 million. And there's a lot of hundreds of millions of dollars that the federal government is investing in every single state, not billions, or even billions of dollars, but several $1 million in many engineering projects as well. And what happens when the government injects several millions of dollars in the industry? It probably and it certainly promotes jobs. And in my example, I work with a road construction industry. There's certainly a lot of projects that are already happening, and there is very good perspective for this federal stimulus program to keep continuing in the next financial year that starts in July and also until June 2022. So I am from Brisbane, and when those ones that live in Brisbane, we know that there's one of the largest projects now in Australia, Cross River Rail. It's an infrastructure project where they're building tunnels under the river and also building train stations and etc. etc. So a project like that is going to be going for like at least 3 or 4 years, and it's going to be employing many types of engineers. It will be employing civil engineers, electrical engineers, tunnel engineers, rail engineers, systems engineers, geotechnical engineers, mining engineers, electronics engineers, environmental engineers, mechanical engineers, production engineers, not just directly with the project, but also because the project is going to be consuming a lot of supplies and a lot of material and equipment. The suppliers will also be engaging and hiring other engineers for that as well. So those ones in Sydney, in Melbourne, in Perth, Gold Coast, and in local governments also, the local governments is your city council. The local governments are also investing a lot of money to keep the economy moving. So you will see that probably since October, November last year, a lot of companies, they actually resume their recruitment process and they are hiring engineers now. So I'm going to talk about how you can then going to get this PDF. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take a picture now of this document here, and I'm going to make a post in my Instagram, and then you will be able to make a comment. Yep, took a picture now. So I'm going to do a post just now in my Instagram. Stay with me. And then you'll be able to comment, and then obviously like and comment, and then I'll be putting this as a PDF in the Telegram group. So what is the biggest impact for you in the engineers market? Sharing and done. So you probably can see here, I just posted in my Instagram. So I welcome you guys to like and make a comment, so I can then create a PDF of this one. I'm going to check if is there any question there. Yeah, there are some questions about in Facebook. This is all about construction only. Not quite just construction. It's about any type of engineering. I would like to ask you, send me your WhatsApp number because I'm a student. All right. Well, you can send me your question, Harry Tony, in Facebook. You can send me a question in Messenger, and I'll reply there as well. And Instagram, it's all good. Yeah. And the password of this PDF is going to have two halves. The first half of this password is engineers, all in small letters. So engineers in small letters. So that's the first half, and then towards the end, I'm going to release the second half of the password. So the other thing that I want to talk about. The market for engineers during this COVID time in Australia is which cities do you think would have better opportunities for engineers? So it will depend on what better opportunities mean for you and your skills and capabilities. Better opportunities can be if you have already a visa. Better opportunities can be where you can find a job easier. If you don't have a visa, better opportunities can be a city that can give you a better way or a better pathway for you to get a visa, and then you can get a full-time job easier. So better opportunities will have different meaning to different people. And remember that the market rule is always that you have supply and you have demand. So supply and demand rule will always apply to any job search, to any situation in any country, regardless of having a pandemic, or if the city is small or if the city is large. You always got to think about supply and demand. When you have a lot of supplies of engineers, and if you don't really have a lot of demand, it means that you don't really have a lot of projects, but you have a lot of supplies, a lot of engineers in the market. Obviously, the market is going to be very competitive. And if you're applying for a job, it's going to be much more difficult for you to get a job. On the other hand, if you have a high demand, which means a lot of projects, a lot of companies recruiting many engineers, and if you don't have a lot of engineers in the market, it's going to be much easier for you to search for a job. In cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, you're probably always going to have more opportunities. You will have more jobs being offered, but keep in mind that in these large cities, they will certainly have the biggest competition as well. Everybody wants to go to Sydney. Everybody wants to go to Melbourne. Everybody wants to come to Brisbane. There are many other cities in Australia that can offer very good quality of life and also still offering some very good job opportunities. And it doesn't need to be capital cities. You can go to Gold Coast and you can go to cities around Sydney. And you will be able to find good jobs as well. And obviously, we're talking about also capitals like Perth, Darwin, Hobart, and Adelaide. So there's certainly in Canberra. I'm not sure about Canberra, but I'm pretty sure that in Perth, and I'm hearing very good stories about Adelaide as well, that there has been a lot of opportunities there. And also being regional, you have the facility in terms of your visa. So always good to check with your registered migration agent and make sure that you do a migration plan. So when you are thinking about if you are in Brazil or in another country coming to Australia, always good to do a migration plan with a migration agent so you don't really waste your time and money going to a place or doing a course that doesn't really give you a good opportunity to migrate, if this is your plan. If you don't really have a plan, if you just want to come to Australia to study and then work a little bit and enjoy the Australian life, then might as well, come to any whatever is your dream place. I'm pretty sure that you'll be amazed with whatever city you come to Australia. So the other topic that I would like to talk about is about what is the impact of the Australian borders being closed. So that's another thing, because since March, I think end of March last year, the federal government closed the borders. So no new arrivals. They are coming to Australia, visitors, I mean, Australian citizens and holders of permanent visas. They can be repatriated. Finding a flight, then it's another issue. But if you're an Australian citizen, if you are a permanent resident, you can come to Australia. There is obviously the situation now with India, but I'm not going to talk about it. But what was the impact when the Australian government closed the borders? And just so you know, I was doing some research for this live session, and then I found out that in 2017-2018 financial year, more than 7,000 engineers, they were granted temporary visas to work in Australia. And for permanent migrants, more than 13,000 permanent visas were granted to engineers. So if you think that we're talking about probably 20,000 engineers potentially coming to Australia, those are the ones that since last year, they were not able to come, even those permanent ones, because not all permanents, they came to Australia. So, but if we just talk about the 7,000 temporary visas that were granted in 17-18, not sure about the data between 18-19 and 19-20, but let's assume that that's the same number, 7,000 engineers. It means that there are 7,000 engineers less in the market every year. So, because they are not coming to Australia, which means that the Australian market is dealing with the number of engineers that are in Australian soil. So, what do you think does this mean to you? If you are in Australia, or if you are still in your home country, the Australian borders being closed, what do you think it means for you? Does it mean an opportunity? Does it mean an opportunity that's being missed because you're not here? Or is it an opportunity if you are outside of Australia? Is it an opportunity for you to get prepared and plan for your migration process while the borders are closed? Because as you know, planning a migration process, doing your validation and everything else, it does take time. And perhaps while the borders are closed is the right time for you to do your planning and do your preparation for your migration process. And also I was researching, and according to Engineers Australia, there are approximately 490,000 qualified engineers in the domestic labor force in Australia. 490,000 qualified engineers in Australia. But on the other hand, Engineers Australia is saying that just 56.5%, so just a little bit more than half of these 490,000 engineers, they are engaged in engineering roles. So if you think about 50%, it's about 245,000, a little bit more. So maybe 250,000 engineers in the whole Australia that are engaged in engineering roles. And if we are not bringing 7,000 engineers per year, 7,000, 250, 7,000, 10% would be 25, 5% would be 12, so 2.5% of those engineers, we're not growing the number of engineers here in Australia. Obviously, we're just growing the engineers that are being graduated in the local universities here. But as you know, we don't really have a huge number of universities, and we're not really growing that many numbers of engineers. And every year we've got the engineers that they are also retiring as well. And what can you do to improve your chances to get a job as an engineer here in Australia? So that's probably an important part of the live session. First, and I mentioned that in the last, I think it was in the last live session where I talk about the job checklist for you to get your first professional job in Australia. Some of the things that I'm going to talk now is something that I already spoke last week, but it's always important to reinforce. So the first thing is to improve your networking, the people that you know, the companies that you know. It's all important to make sure that you keep networking very, very strongly. Also, another important thing is for you to have a migration plan with a registered migration agent to avoid wasting time, money, and frustration. Also, it's a good idea to read technical articles to keep your CPD up and going. CPD being your continuing professional development. It's also a good idea to customize your CV and cover letter to the Australian way. So if you are from a country, let's say I'm from Brazil, and the way that we prepare cover letters and resumes in Brazil is different from how we do here in Australia. So it's certainly a good thing for you to review your documents and making sure that you adjust to the Australian way. If you go to my YouTube channel, I've got many videos that I talk about and I give hints how you can improve your CV and how you can improve your cover letter as well. And also, it's important to understand how to behave in professional interviews in Australia. In my YouTube channels, I've got many videos where I talk about some hints and tips for you to behave in professional interviews in Australia as well. The other thing that you certainly need to do to improve your chances to get a job as an engineer is to start and finish, obviously not just starting, but start and finish your validation process, so your engineering qualification validation process. And why is that? Because majority of reputable companies will ask if you have your engineering qualification validated, which demonstrates that you have been assessed by Engineers Australia and your qualification is equivalent to an Australian qualification. Especially in times like this, where there are a large number of engineers in the market. As I mentioned before, there is certainly a lot of engineers in the market. Last year, we did a recruitment. We ended up receiving more than 70 applications, 70 applications. So there's certainly a lot of engineers in the market. And when the panel is shortlisting the candidates, usually panels, they shortlist between 3, 4, maybe 5 candidates for the interview. And if you have a pool of applicants of about 70, doesn't need to be 70, let's say 40 or 50, certainly half of that will not have their qualification validated, and the other half probably will. If we think about 50, the half that will have the qualification validated is going to be already 25. So why would the panel waste time in assessing applications where engineers are not even validated? So that can be, how can I say, a selection criteria. If you really not validated, probably means that you don't really have a visa to work full-time as well. And also you cannot really provide professional engineering services. Here in Queensland is the only state that for you to provide professional engineering services, you have to be a registered professional engineer of Queensland with the board. And if you are not registered, you're actually incurring in criminal offense. There are just a couple of exemptions. One, if you are following strictly prescriptive the standard, or if you are being directly supervised by a registered professional engineer of Queensland. If not, and if you are providing professional engineering services, you gotta be registered. And to be registered, it's a requirement for you to have your engineering qualification validated first. So in states like New South Wales and Victoria, I mentioned last week, and I'm going to reinforce today, because obviously we as professional engineers, we need to protect the profession of engineers and making sure that just competent engineers, they provide professional engineering services. In New South Wales and Victoria, from 1 July this year, 2021, they will start their registration scheme as well. There will be a transition period. I don't know really how long is going to be the registration transition, but there will be a transition, and which means that in 2, 3, maybe 4 years, for you to provide professional engineering services in New South Wales and Victoria, you will have to be registered with their board of professional engineers. And to be registered, you also got to validate your qualification first. And for those ones that attended my free workshop last month, I thank you very much for your participation. And for the students that enrolled in my mentoring program, I certainly thank you very much. And I hope to be guiding you and be mentoring you in this journey to your validation. For those ones that missed out the free online workshop, there's always an opportunity, because I commit myself to run these free online workshops a few times a year. Next time is going to be next month in June. So if you are interested to participate in the free workshop, I'm going to paste the link for you to register for free in Facebook and YouTube. It's in the comments there. You can go and register yourself. Those ones in Instagram, you can go to my link in my bio, and then once you click in there, the first button is for you to register to the next free online workshop. Just make sure that when you register, you will receive a confirmation email. If after 5 or 10 or 15 minutes you don't really receive the confirmation email, please check your junk mail, because the email could have gone to your junk mail box. And if it did, it's important for you to save my email address in your contacts and mark it as favorite or VIP or a star. So the future emails, they don't really go to the junk mail, because nobody checks junk mail, obviously. A good idea is for you to not just the email, but then Telegram group, because the communication that I send by email, I usually share in the Telegram group as well. In Telegram, there's no algorithm, so I'm pretty sure that the messages go to you. Obviously, it's your discretion to open and to read the messages that I send. So, for those that are still online, I'm going to give the second half of the password. I'm going to show you how the PDF is taking shape. So that's how the PDF is taking shape. What has changed in the market? Are there more or less jobs for engineers? Which cities would have better opportunities there? What's the impact of the Australian borders being closed? And I included as I mentioned that I got this from Engineers Australia, I included the link for you to read the whole article there. And then what can you do to improve your chances to get a job as an engineer, and information about the validation of your engineering qualification, and information about the next free workshop. So the second half of the password is market. So do you remember what was the first half? Should I say it again? Yeah, you guys are good. I'll say it again, even if you missed the first half and you just got the second half. I'll say both halves now. So the first half was engineers, and the second half is market. So which means that engineers market altogether, all in small words, is going to be the password of this PDF that I'm showing to you. But you got to remember that you need to like and put a comment in my last Instagram post, which is asking the question of this PDF. What is the biggest impact for you in the engineers market? So if I don't have interaction there, I'm not going to create the PDF, and I'm not going to post in my Telegram group. But if I do have likes and interaction, I think I can ask you this, because I spent a few hours putting together this content, doing the research and preparing for the live and actually doing live. I think I can ask you guys to help my social media. If you don't follow me yet in Instagram, please consider following me on Instagram, and you get my notifications. And in the last Instagram post, which is this one there, please like the post and then put some comments, and then I will create the PDF and I will post in the Telegram group. I would like to ask you guys if you guys have any question. Obviously, for my students, I've got a VIP group in Telegram for my students of my mentoring program. And for my students, I always send my PDF without the password, of course, because they are my students. So I'm just going to check if I have any comments or questions on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram. And if not, I'm conscious of time. I will then leave you guys alone. So looks like it's all good. And if you have any suggestion for future live sessions, please leave in the comment or send me a message, because I'm here every week and this is live number 98. So I'm already planning what I'm going to talk about in my live 100, which obviously it's a very special number, 3 figures, 100 lives. But also I'm going to make a special live on live number 104, because as you know, we've got 52 weeks every year, and the live 104 means that 2 years of doing live sessions every week. So I'm trying to be very consistent, and having 104 lives, I think it's being very, very consistent. A lot of people say that I just do this because of my mentoring program. I would like to say to those ones, when you do more than 100 lives every week, then you can criticize me. If you don't do this, well, do first and then criticize later. I can guarantee to you that the amount of time that I did just doing free content is 1,000 times more than whatever revenue I got with my mentoring program. And those ones in my mentoring program, they can see that the investment that they made comparing to the content that they get is pretty much nothing, because that's a lot of content in the mentoring program. So I would like to thank you very much, and thanks Rodrigo for your comments in the live session, and I look forward to working with you in the mentoring as well. So thank you very much, guys, And I'll see you, everybody, next Sunday, 8:30 p.m. on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook with another live session. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.